Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes to join the call before we officially kick things off today. While we're waiting, we do ask that folks virtually introduce themselves by renaming themselves. Please include your names, pronouns, and any organizations you might be representing here today. This meeting is going to be recorded so that people who can't be here can review the content. Um, Please still be encouraged to turn your camera on if you are able to do so. That will not be shared in the recording unless you unmute yourself to present. We like seeing people's faces to try and create the warm, welcoming atmosphere that we do so try to cultivate at our in-person meetings. If anyone's having any technical issues or troubles joining the call, please send either myself or Sasha a private chat message, or you can send one of us an email and we will follow up. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes here. Thanks, everyone. All right, well, welcome and good morning, everyone. I think we might have a few more people who might be joining the call in a little bit, but we have a packed agenda as usual, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off this morning. Hello, and welcome to the April membership meeting of the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. For those of you who might be joining this meeting for the first time, the Coalition convenes these meetings of our members and allies on the third Thursday of every month from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. So that we can share information and resources, highlight relevant, timely advocacy opportunities in the community, and create power and solidarity as a movement. Today, we are going to be highlighting some basic needs assessment initiatives in the community, including an increase to SNAP benefits and work to help unhoused folks claim their stimulus checks. A little bit later in the meeting, we're going to highlight some pretty significant wins that we've achieved on the state level with some of our legislative advocacy work, as well as highlight a smattering of other opportunities. We're going to hear some updates from our members on things that they have been working on that they hope to plug into the greater community about, and round out the end of our meeting with a handful of updates for you all. Those of you who are coalition regulars know that we like to start our meeting by having someone from the audience read our mission statement. It's something we've done for many years to ground ourselves collectively in the work that we are doing, and sort of remind everyone why we all took the time to be here at 9 o'clock in the morning. If we were in person, I would scan the room to see who is trying to avoid eye contact with me to call on them to read the mission statement. Do we have any brave souls in the virtual audience who would like to start us off this morning? I see a hand from Nina. Thank you so much, Nina. Please go for it.
We mobilize our community to challenge this. Sorry, the chat box is up. We mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice.
Thank you so much, Nina. That's been something that we've been doing at our meetings for many years now. Something that we've sort of recently added to that are our vision statement and our value statements. These are things that our coalition board of directors spent a good deal of time and energy crafting with input from our membership. It further explicates our mission and what we hope to accomplish, and kind of further grounds us in the work that we're hoping to achieve. So the vision of the Coalition on Homelessness is a region that acts on a shared sense of responsibility to ensure that everyone has a home. Our core values are equity, justice, and collective action. We define equity as to center race in the fight for housing justice, as white supremacy and structural racism cause disparities in who experience homelessness. We define justice as to uphold the dignity and civil rights of people experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity, and collective action, which to us means to collaborate, unite, and act to build power. Which is, none of this would be possible without the contribution and participation of all of you. So thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to start this morning with some exciting updates related to basic needs assistance. There is an increase to SNAP benefits that will be working its way into our community thanks to the Recovery Act that was recently passed. We are joined this morning by Nelly Evans with United Way, their Food Security Program Coordinator, who's going to kick us off this morning with just a few remarks about sort of this increase in benefits and what to know as they reach our community. If we could hop over to the next slide, please. All right. Well, Nelly, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Take us away.
Thank you so much, Jason. Hi, everyone. My name is Nelly Evans. I use she, her pronouns, and I, as Jason mentioned, I'm the Food Security Program Coordinator with United Way of King County. And given skyrocketing food insecurity rates, increased benefits, and increased eligibility, it really became apparent that we wanted to get the word out about basic food. So this spring, in partnership with Within Reach, we have launched a campaign to increase awareness and enrollment in basic food. For those of you who don't know, basic food is Washington's name for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, or formerly known as food stamps, and it provides eligible individuals, families, and households with monthly benefits to use for groceries. We know that many people lack the resources and knowledge on how to apply or how to get enrolled. So we stood up this hotline known as the Family Food Hotline. Previously, it helped families find summer meal sites. We're repurposing it Within Reach to help people get direct application assistance, especially those people who lack internet access. So we want to connect people to basic food because, as Jason mentioned, not only was it already valuable, but it is increasingly valuable. So just for an example, a family of 4 can receive over $600 a month. So the maximum amount an eligible household can receive has also increased, and now all households and individuals qualify for the maximum benefit allotment. So we're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars potentially being missed out by a lot of people in Washington state. So for individuals and families experiencing homelessness, DSHS does allow people to pick up their EBT cards in person if they do lack a physical mailing address. And we do have, again, on this free and open hotline, we have folks who are experienced with screening and enrolling individuals and families experiencing homelessness. This number is here. I'll drop it in the chat. We have a website with more information, but we do acknowledge that people do lack resources to the internet. So if you all would like to learn more about our campaign, the information is at wafoodhelp.org, and again, in multiple languages. Would really love if anyone is really motivated to help us get the word out. You can connect with me directly. I have digital and hard copy flyers, a lot of marketing materials. This is kind of a sample of what our imagery looks like, but would love to connect. Again, the hotline is ready and open to take calls. We just want to connect more folks to food benefits. Absolutely. The in-person pickup options, you would have to go to the local DSHS office or coordinate that directly during the DSHS interview. For those of you who don't know, after you do submit your initial application with DSHS, you have to call within the first 30 days of that application. So it's a very active on the participant part. You do have to call DSHS within that first 30 days. And then during that interview process is when you would figure out how and when you would pick up the physical EBT card. But the folks within Reach would definitely be able to walk applicants through that process on the hotline. They are in person. They are not currently open for in person, but they make exceptions for these specific instances, is what I've been told. If this becomes a barrier, please do let us know and we can pull some levers on the back end, see what's going on. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yay, we have someone from DSHS.
Good morning. This is Sarah Sweeney. I'm a social service supervisor at DSHS. But in terms of the in-person, the only opportunity for folks to pick up for in-person are if the client does not have a mailing address and utilizes general delivery. If the person is in our address confidentiality program, so fleeing DV, and then the third option is if they have an alternate card holder on their account. So those are the only three options when someone is able to come into the office. They would need to call our contact center, which I can put that number in the chat, and then make that appointment. And our EBT hours for those options are 10 to 2 daily.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. That is great news. That is all from me. Unless anyone else has any questions, I appreciate you making the time and space for me to come and help get the word out about basic food.
Thank you so much, Nelly, for joining us and presenting. And also thank you, Sarah, for providing that supplemental information. It's much appreciated. We will be making this information available on our website as well as in the follow-up email. So related to basic needs assistance is stimulus checks. We are now on our third round of what are being called economic impact payments, otherwise more commonly known as stimulus checks. Most Americans don't have to do anything to claim their stimulus benefits. Most people receive these payments via either direct deposit into their bank account or provided a mailed check or debit card based on the information that was provided on their 2019 or 2020 tax return. For folks who haven't filed a tax return in recent years, and for folks who are not receiving federal benefits such as SSI, those folks specifically have struggled to claim their stimulus checks. And we know that a large portion of those individuals are people experiencing homelessness. There are good efforts happening in the community to help connect folks with their stimulus checks. At this point, the only way for someone to claim either the current stimulus check who hasn't received one yet or the prior ones that were missed is by filing their 2020 tax return. So we wanted to take a few minutes at this meeting today to talk about what resources are available in the community to help folks file their tax return in order to claim this important benefit. We're going to hear from two folks here. We're joined by Walter Washington with United Way, who helps to oversee the tax filing preparation service program that they run in the community. A little bit later, we're going to hear from Dawn with the REACH program, who has been doing fantastic outreach into the community to help unhoused folks claim their stimulus checks, to sort of give you all a sense of what we can do to help connect folks with these important resources. So Walter, I'm going to start with you. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Jason. I'm hoping you can hear me. Hello, everyone. Can you give me a thumbs up if I could be heard? Dynamite. I'm actually working at a coffee shop because my wife had kicked me out of the office. I always defer to her. I see so many faces that I recognize. John, Allison, Nefertari, and many others. Hello to everyone. Super excited to talk about taxes. This is not my wheelhouse traditionally. So there's a great chance that someone on the line right now knows a whole lot more about taxes than I do. My background is in homeless services, stability services, but getting a chance to kind of merge these two is fantastic. So it's great to have Skitch as a partner and making sure these folks who really, really need money and resources get served. So I think what I'll do first is share a few slides. And I believe I have privileges, is that right? Let's see. Okay. Okay. You should see a PowerPoint very shortly here. Is everyone looking at a PowerPoint? Terrific. And now if only I can see the PowerPoint, trying to minimize the folks on the screen. Okay, terrific. So as you all know, this year has been really challenging for a lot of folks who have been experiencing a loss of income, loss of job, health-related things that have required more resources. Typically, in a non-COVID world, our VITA program would serve around 30,000 individuals. So it's the biggest of its sort in the region. This particular year, we moved primarily to a virtual environment up until about 3 weeks ago. So right now we're operating in a hybrid environment. Folks would claim their stimulus through filing their taxes, all 3 rounds. And we have both a virtual and an on-site services at Seattle Goodwill, which I'll get back to in a moment. So in a virtual environment, it's not quite as seamless as you would like it to be, but it is highly accessible. Ideally, we want this to be about a 3-hour process. Essentially, it's 2 phone calls and 1 email. It's not quite that simple. A lot of the folks that we're interfacing with are requiring a lot more navigation or guidance. Fortunately, we have a really strong partnership with 211. So 211 has folks that we've contracted with who are experts in navigating this process. So it's not quite as daunting. But we're about 95% virtual and about 5% now on-site services. I think for the homeless demographic, we're hoping a lot of those folks will actually join us in person at Seattle Goodwill. More on that in a moment. So the COVID relief stimulus. So this particular slide covers the first 2 stimulus payments. I haven't had a chance to update this to talk about the 3rd, but at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the link. The Get My Payment link has a ton of resources and Q&As that will answer a lot of questions that folks will have about eligibility. We have a lot of folks who come to us and say, hey, I think I've received, but I'm not sure. Or folks who might have been expecting and they want to track their payment. They'll go to that link, rs.gov, coronavirus, get my payment, and there's a ton of resources there. I would highly encourage everyone here, and a lot of you are connected to hundreds of clients, go to that site, and within about 5 minutes, you'll know almost as much as I know about the COVID relief stimulus. You'll only be able to get the stimulus by filing for taxes, and you'll still get your stimulus even if you owe. So to begin virtually, you go to freetaxexperts.org. That'll bring you to a United Way ran website, and you have 2 ways to file. Virtually, one is that going through our campaign to get your refund, and the other is My Free Taxes. Now, if you go to get your refund, you get a fully guided experience that will help you upload documents, and your clients can upload documents. You have folks via our live chat, United Way trained folks who will help them navigate the process. And then you have the option to go to myfreetaxes.com. So folks have a very simple return and feel pretty confident in just uploading the documents on their own. It's mostly free for the demographic that we're serving, making $55,000 and under. So you have those 2 options, but the My Free Taxes is primarily an unguided experience. Again, some redundancy here, but calling 211 is a great resource. We actually don't have a line that our service providers can call. We are contracted with 211 to handle all those phone calls. However, if you go to our website, within about 5 seconds, a live chat will pop up with one of my staff, and they'll right away begin to answer either simple or complicated questions about the process. And that website is in 25 different languages. So when you land on the website, you'll see the languages beneath. You have the option to click that website, the language that you're looking for, and the entire website will be translated into that language. Now, unfortunately, our live chat does not have that same translation. So we rely very heavily on Language Line and our partners at 211 who have another language-related service. Now, what we're really excited about is our recent partnership with Seattle Goodwill that started just 3 weeks ago. We're now offering on-site services Tuesday and Friday, no appointment needed. So there's parking there, it's right on the bus line. You can kind of get a 2-for-1 service and going over to a retail store to do some shopping. It's been busy, really, really busy. So we're advocating for folks to get there maybe at 9:15, 9:30, because that list fills up pretty fast. It's first come, first serve. And we have a hard stop at 7. So really, if it's a busy day, as we're expecting tomorrow, if folks are getting there after 5 p.m., there's a great chance they won't be served because the building alarm goes on at 7 o'clock, and we got to get out of there. it's certainly worth making note that that email, free text at uwkc.org is one you want to write down. So you'll have questions after this presentation, after our conversation, that you can ask through that particular email. Usually at Seattle Goodwill, we'll have coffee, we'll have water, and maybe a few snacks. But we're really encouraging, social distancing, and for folks to really plan out at least 6 hours, because you might get there, maybe have a 2-hour wait before you engage. And let's say some of our demographic might have to run home to grab something and come back, or we can help them actually pull up their old filing, or just find some of the documents that are needed. But once you actually get inside, it's really about a 45-minute process. This slide is everything you need that we're asking our participants to bring with them. Certainly an ID and social security card, most important things amongst them. We can't serve anyone without a social security card or photo ID unless they have an I-10. So for folks who are not documented and don't have a social security number, we have a partnership with ECU, Express Credit Union, which is just about a 10-minute bus ride from us, or 8-minute drive. They also have parking there. They're located in Soto District. So you would go through the tax prep services like everyone else, and that number would be left blank. They'd go down, no appointment needed, to ECU and walk in 10 minutes. They'll have I-10, and then they would do a hard file as opposed to an e-file as we're traditionally doing on site. I'm actually going to stop sharing and look at the chat and answer a few questions, and then we can quickly together noodle on some ideas about how to serve the homeless demographic in particular. I did something wrong. Let's see. Okay, stop share. Here we are. Jason, if you don't mind helping with some of the questions in the chat, let's see. Yes, I have flyers. I will email virtual flyers to everyone. And I have about literally 85,000 hard flyers as well that I can get to you. So let's say you're at an agency, let's say a Wellspring, I can drop off as many flyers you want to have, and please do distribute those.
We have a question in the chat, Walter. What kind of a wait time is there for the phone number service?
Oh, the phone number service is immediate. So it's the 211 line you'll call, and the triage will have a tax option. I think it actually leads with the tax option still. And you just click that number, and there are about 8 temp staff who are trained that will immediately pick up your call. So it's not the other larger triage, it's a particularly tracks triage that when you call 211 right away, you get that prompt and engage with. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And we have a couple comments about, ID access being a barrier. We know that access to government issued photo ID can be challenging for the populations that we work with. Can you say a little bit more about what type of ID is allowed and like what workarounds are available if, say, like an ID card is not on hand?
It's slightly nuanced. You might ask the question to one of your clients if they filed with us in the past. Now, if they filed with us in the past, there's a slightly different criteria. Our site managers have all been with us for 10 years plus. So a lot of the times we filed with us in the past, we have copies of your past material. So there's that piece. But certainly we do, we prefer a government issued ID. And there are times where we don't have a social security number requirement, but oftentimes we'll need that social security card if possible. We still have, I think, almost 5 more weeks in the season. I know these things are not easy to get, they take a long time, but certainly I'll be working on, if possible, getting a government ID of any sort.
Thank you, Walter. That's helpful to hear. Okay. Well, thank you for providing that that background, Walter. I think at this point, I want to bring, I see a hand from Allison. You have a question?
Allison?
I'm so sorry. Hello, Walter. Thank you so much for joining us with this wealth of information. I wanted to ask a question that I think you don't know the answer to because none of us does, but I wanted to just ask it so we can all be thinking about this. My understanding is the current deadline is May 17th, 2021. However, it seems highly likely that that deadline could be extended. Do you have any information you can share with us?
Yeah, there are a group of folks who feel like it's not going to be extended. So there's two different camps.
Okay.
I think what's important for this and everyone here to know is that although the deadline is May 17th currently, we're going to have a really strong postseason. So if you do not owe money, you can continue to file through the course of the year.
Okay.
Get Your Refund platform is actually good into October. And this relationship with Seattle Goodwill is going to go through October, right? So that's a great question. A lot of folks don't know that. And there's benefits to not telling people sometimes that they can continue to file after May 17th because you want folks to actually file and get this resource. So certainly put the urgency, make sure the fire is there. However, you can continue to file so long as you don't owe after May 17th. And in fact, Jason and I and others have talked about the idea of having some pop-ups. You might have, let's say, 2 or 3 different agencies that want to have one day at Seattle Goodwill. Let's say it's a Wednesday. We can reserve that day just for your clients. So be thinking about, you might have, let's say, a Mary's Place and Wellspring Family Services, maybe a family provider, a couple of family providers have one day together. And we can say, hey, on this particular date, we're going to serve 50 to 60 individuals, but it's up to the service provider to send us those names and we'll schedule them for the course of that day. I think that's a really cool way to do things and think about it. As you all know, in very intimate environments, it can be difficult to have some cross subsets of demographics kind of in the same environment together. So I do encourage you all to have, if you have kind of peer agencies, let's talk about a pop-up and doing maybe a pop-up day together. I see John's hand. John just put his hand down, I think. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for offering that to us all, Walter. If folks might be interested in following up on that, should they contact you directly?
Yeah, and I'll drop my email here in the chat.
Fantastic. Thank you, Walter.
The other thing I would say, sorry, go for it, Jason.
Well, so at this point, I think I want to sort of bring in a provider perspective to this conversation, just so we can sort of hear a little bit about what it's been like on the ground for folks who have been helping people claim their benefits and sort of highlight some successes and challenges for people to be aware of. We are joined this morning by Dawn Whitson, who is an outreach caseworker with the REACH program, who's been doing some really excellent work ever since the first stimulus payment came out to help people with this, who's going to share some insights on what it's been like on the ground. Dawn, thank you so much for being with us here this morning.
Hi, Jason, thank you so much for having me. I literally just managed to get out of traffic to pull over to do this, so good timing. So to give everyone some updates about some of the challenges where we have been running into, last fall, we signed up anywhere in my office between 500 and 1,000 folks who were unsheltered using the non-filer portal. Most of those folks received their first checks. Of course, some of them didn't because of child support, but none of them have received their second or their third checks. We have been trying desperately to get a hold of folks at the IRS. And at one point a couple of weeks ago, I finally got through to somebody who told my client that their check had been returned to sender, and that they would not remail it, and that the next step for her then would be to file her taxes for 2019 in order to receive the $600, and for 2020 in order to receive the $1,400. I'm still waiting for confirmation that she needs to actually file both of those years. But what that presents to me for my clients is that now we are faced with having to file taxes for a lot of individuals. So I was super glad to hear just now from the previous speaker that it looks like we don't have to meet that May 17th deadline for at least getting folks filed so that they can access the recovery rebate credit. So that was a huge relief. What it also does mean is that there's going to be a huge burden of time that goes into this. And my biggest reason to want to be here, aside from like informing everyone of what the status of things are for folks living outside, is to ask for volunteers to help us do this. Most of my time is spent going into encampments, and I know all of my clients very well, and so do my coworkers. So I fully intend to do an all call in my agency and just ask for as much help as possible, but it's not going to be enough with the jobs that we already have to do. So anyone that is willing to either come into encampments with us and just set up tables and file those taxes for people so that they have access to these monies would be so incredibly helpful. And I would be so grateful. And I know the folks outside would be too. The other thing that we do throughout the city since COVID started is I facilitate a pop-up tent every Thursday at the food bank down in Georgetown. Most of the folks down in my area know that it's there. It's a very centralized location. And in fact, this is the location that I had set up multiple tables to help people file for the non-filer portal. So it would make sense for us to use this location again and to take advantage of the cooperation with the food bank to be able to just line up a bunch of tables and knock these out as much as possible. There are other pop-up tents that my coworkers facilitate around the city, and those are on different days, but mine is the one that's like every single week. And so coordination would have to be done with, each individual outreach person that could possibly do some training one-on-one with folks just about how to interact with people who are living outside. But really it went very smoothly last time. So I don't foresee there being any challenges with that. And everyone would be happy to answer any questions that people might have. One of the challenges that we are running into is that the concern being that checks were returned to sender that were not returned by us, but were returned by the post office. So we're working on trying to problem solve that. And we may just be using general delivery at the post office so that we don't run into the issues that we've had this time. Jason, is there anything else that you wanted me to cover?
That's most of it. I think Allison wanted to provide a few additional comments related to some of the issues that you've raised.
Okay.
Thanks, Dawn, so much for sharing this incredible body of work that you and your staff have engaged in, and for the on-the-ground experience. And it's a great combination to have you and Walter sharing perspective on this. I just wanted to say we're at the coalition actually in the process of working on a possible proposal to address some of the need for additional capacity that you're identifying. And we're in process, so we will follow up with you. Also about the returned mail. Jason flagged this for me yesterday, and one of the things that I want to follow up with you about, Dawn, and maybe Walter, it's a good thing to bring you and your team in on this as well, is in the past when we have had issues with people without homes and without traditional residential addresses accessing their mail service. Walter knows this very well because when he and I met, he was managing the client services office at 77 South Washington Street at Compass Housing, where thousands of people do get their mail. We have reached out to the federal government, to the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, to talk about the U.S. Postal Service's responsibilities with respect to ensuring that people without homes get their mail. So I think we will gladly work with you to do some information gathering, tracking down what's really going on, and problem solving.
Oh, thank you so much, Allison. I actually went to the post office down in Georgetown day before yesterday And I spoke with one of the managers there, and he did say it was very likely that the stuff was flagged on the, what was he called? He called it, well, it was basically, it's the receiving end where things were first shipped from the IRS and hit that initial dispatch side of the USPS service. And he basically explained to me that the side where we have our local post office is the other half of that entity, but that they don't communicate very well. So when I was asking him, who can I speak to that's higher up on the other side to try to resolve this issue before we go ahead and file these taxes and have more checks show up, he was not able to direct me to anybody. I'm like, somebody's got to be able to talk to somebody. Like, help me out
Yes.
here. So, and I really just ran into a brick wall with that. So, I was shocked. Like, to me, to my way of thinking, it's like, well, I will find, if I don't know the answer, I will find somebody who does. But this has been terribly frustrating. And even when I have managed to get through to someone at the IRS, where the letter that people received saying, you're going to get this check, if you don't get it in 7 days, call this number. Almost invariably, you call, you sit on hold for an hour. Somebody comes on the line and finally says, well, how can I help you? You explain to them what's, I didn't get this check. And they say, okay, I'm going to put you on hold and transfer you to somebody. And then you get a recording that says, due to a high volume of calls, we cannot take your call right now. Please try again later. The one time I actually had somebody talk to me and that didn't happen, I was told that we need to do the trace form request in order for people to find out whether or not that check was cashed, and that would take 4 to 6 weeks. And that once they determined whether or not it was cashed, then they could go ahead and file their taxes. And at this point, I'm more inclined to think we just need to file these taxes because we know they weren't cashed. But solve the problem on the flip side of that with the post office going forward. And if there was any way that we could get the IRS to just reissue the dang checks and save us all the time, that would be great. But I don't know. I'm hoping you can gain some more traction. I really appreciate everyone taking an interest in this because I have promised my clients that I would not give up on this money for them.
I'll invite you to a meeting we're having with our RS contact next week. Certainly you and Jason at the very least, Allison as well, maybe even a few others, because I think that testimony, that shared testimony for our contact would make a big difference. And
I'm actually going to be on vacation. I leave on Sunday. I'm going to get married. So
wow, congratulations.
So I will be back the following week.
We will work around that schedule.
Okay.
I promise that we will support you in going on vacation and getting married.
Thank you.
But Walter, that's a wonderful idea. Let's figure out offline. Jason can maybe help to facilitate the conversation that's needed.
Okay.
Heroic efforts. Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah. Any other questions I can answer for you guys today? None? Okay. Well, oh, go ahead.
Don, I was just wondering if we could take a minute to talk about the RV issues, because I had to move my RV today. I actually moved it though. I moved to Colorado Street, but they already bitched us for parking here. And I don't know what we're gonna do. So again,
hi Chanel. I hear your voice.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm tired of this issue, and it seems like no one wants to talk about it, or when they do, they just want to talk about all the problems. And I'd like to talk about some solutions sometime. So I don't know. I'm really frustrated because we did move last night from that spot, and they started fencing us in. But we need somewhere to park, and it's been a problem. I've been telling you about this for a long time.
Well, I will tell you that there is conversation. There are discussions taking place right now with the city council about trying to find a safe parking spot in Seattle with the city council. So I don't know what the timeline looks like on that. But I
Okay.
will say that we are getting some traction on that. So please don't give up hope.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. That's kind of why I'm here right now. So
I know. I'm glad you're here. Good job showing up.
yeah.
Um,
I just want to start a GoFundMe page, I guess. Or I need help doing that because I don't think the city's really going to offer us anything anytime soon. And I think there's enough support out there from other people that they don't want us to be parked next to their businesses, and they would be willing to donate to the to the cause, I guess.
Is that something that we can talk about more when I get back, Chanel?
Yes, yeah, go get married. Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
All right, yeah, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. All right. Bye.
Thanks, Chanel.
Yep. Oh, wait, turn this thing off.
Well, Donna and Walter, thank you so much for joining us here this morning and highlighting this issue for us, and to Chanel for your comments. I think just to quickly wrap things up, Walter, you put a comment in the chat about potential training opportunities and additional resources for service providers through United Way. Do you want to just say a brief statement about that to close this out?
Yeah, I think the idea is that we'll have a weekly training. So the idea we might do a train the trainer. We'll have our staff have a standing time every week to invite case managers to come in and get that intake training, because once you get that intake ethics training, it'll take under an hour. Then you can actually ask some pointed questions I'm sure you're getting from your clients, right? And then we'll know that we have a liaison at each agency, at least one, who's going to ask some of those basic questions. And then you'll have us for more of the more rigorous, deep diving questions to support you. I'd love to hear about what kind of questions or concerns you all are hearing about folks and anxieties about folks who are getting or in need for this resource and not received it yet. We have so many folks who are calling in, walking in saying, hey, I think I'm getting it. When's it coming? And other folks are saying, hey, I just don't know much about it. But so just, I want to make sure we have a point person at the very least who's trained at each agency to be able to answer those intake questions. And that also gives you the coverage to look at taxes as well. So
Walter, and you're with, I'm sorry, I missed your introduction. You're with United Way.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm
Okay.
Stability Services Manager, United Way of King County. Right now, of course, it's all about taxes. So
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
So I will share out with Jason what that date and time are, and then we'll start to invite all of you all and your colleagues to make sure you're certified and ethics trained.
Thank you so much, Walter. We will be sharing information about these training opportunities as soon as they are available. If you are interested in receiving updates about these trainings, and if you are interested in potentially connecting with the REACH team in their outreach efforts over the next month, please send me an email and I would love to get you plugged in. Thanks, Don and Walter. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Have a great day.
You too.
So now we'd like to transition to the portion of our meeting that is member updates. We like to set a little bit of time aside our coalition meetings to highlight major changes at our member agencies, highlight tips and tricks and opportunities for additional services. We have a handful of quick updates to share with you. First off, we're really excited to be inviting Immanuel Community Services to join our call this morning. They hosted a COVID-19 vaccine pop-up event at their program and have some tips and insights to share about their experience. We are joined this morning by Shauna McMahon, who is the Executive Director of their program, to share that information with us. Shauna, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone. We were, luckily, we were scheduled early on tier 1 because of the population we serve, which was amazing, but it also had some challenges. And so for other service providers there, I just wanted to share some of our experience. So when your turn comes around, we're not reinventing the wheel. One of the things I wanted to share was that the providers were pretty amazing, the ones that came. They were patient. Some of our clients had lots of questions about this vaccine and that vaccine, and this one's 3% less effective. And they were just kind and generous and gentle and patient with the questions, which was great. But not all of them understand the complexities of a homeless service site or direct service. And so I would just suggest grace and patience as you work with them, because they're coming from a clinical, this is best practices to do a vaccine clinic, which doesn't always work with our people. I had to advocate pretty strongly over the course of 3 days to split the clinic into 2 places, one in the parking lot where we had originally talked about doing it, and then the other one actually in the hygiene center with the folks who they were actually there to serve. We got tiered so high because of our hygiene center folks, and putting it in the parking lot, and just telling folks, hey, there's vaccines outside if you want them, is not as person-centered, trauma-informed care, low barrier, as we all know is best practice. And by splitting it into 2 and having one table in our hygiene center, we were able to get probably twice, if not 3 times as many people vaccinated. A majority of our folks at the beginning said, no, thanks, no, thanks, no, thanks. But as the time wore on in the clinic, they one by one started going up and getting vaccinated. And I think just bringing it to them where they are and giving them that space and that time to become comfortable, as opposed to being, the clinic's here, you can get vaccinated, I think that was really key to us getting so many people vaccinated. The other thing I'll say that we did, which I'm so happy, it was a lot of work on a really short notice, but I'm so happy we got it done, is we put together these little post-vaccine care kits. And, the thought is that depending on which vaccine you get, between 15 and 30% of the people have a reaction to the second shot. We were lucky to have Johnson & Johnson, which was the 1 shot, but didn't know what percentage of folks might have a reaction. And for those of us that have homes and beds, it's easy for us to crawl into bed and pull the sheets over our head when have 103-degree fever and chills. And for our folks who live outside, that's not so easy for them to do. So we put together little kits that had a fleece, a blanket, socks, and hand warmers in case they got chills. We had applesauce and crackers and Gatorade in case they had upset stomach and nausea. We had little individual packets of Tylenol for the fever and the body aches. And we just filled it with other first aid sort of stuff that would make them comfortable in the event that they're one of the 20% people that are going to have a reaction to this. I've only heard of really 1 client that had a reaction, but they were so great. All of them were grateful for the kits because it's all supplies they're going to use anyways. But the 1 person who was uncomfortable was extremely grateful for that. The men that live in our shelter also were vaccinated, and they were vaccinated some of them were vaccinated at a different time and had Moderna, and we had almost about 40-45% had a reaction. And we were going through that yesterday. We had a bunch of folks not feeling well yesterday. So if you run a shelter and have folks that are consistently there, a post-vaccine kit would also be a good idea for shelters to just provide some comfort and care for folks who might be experiencing those reactions. And then finally, the pro and the con, like, we're so grateful we were tiered early because of and made it available to our people. One thing that if I would have been able to schedule it myself, I would have scheduled it later in the month because our numbers, are about 35% less the first week of the month. And so a lot of our regulars, had either used their stimulus money or their monthly money and were in a hotel for a few days. And then also the materials and not only signage saying, hey, it's coming, but then also signage that is not public health dense, but more easily accessible to our people in the languages that they need to hear it. They had 2 packets of information that had probably, I didn't even count, but more than 5 pages in it in English and in Spanish. But, I don't sit down and read all those pages. Folks in our hygiene center aren't going to sit down and read all those pages. So and I will say that King County has reached out to me to ask for feedback. So I was really grateful for that they said, we want to know what we could do better. So that was really great. And I did tell them that we need simple, clear information that's easy for them to understand in the languages that they prefer. So those would be some of my reflections, you know, the two biggest being the post-vaccine care kit and the advocating for, you know, your program and you know your people, you know the best place to set up the table. It wasn't easy for us. We had food bank going on at the same time, which is why we had 2 locations. So, you know, that limited our space that was available to us because all our spaces were being used by programs at the time. So we were lucky that it was a sunny day and we could do part in the parking lot. But yeah, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. And again, the folks that are setting it up, when I say advocate for yourself, they have good hearts and they are doing what they know is best practice. They just don't know your site and your location and your people. So just don't be afraid to enter into conversation with them and say, this is what would be best.
That's fantastic insight. Thank you so much, Shauna, for taking the time to share that with us this morning. All right, I'm going to move us right along as we are just ever so slightly behind on our meeting agenda, as happens. We have a couple more member updates. We are joined by Rachel Kohler with Recovery Café, who's going to give us a 2-minute update about their monthly resource connection day event and how providers and community members can plug in. Rachel, thanks for being here.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks, Jason. So as Jason said, my name is Rachel and I'm the resource specialist at Recovery Café. So I want to share a little bit with you all about our monthly resource connection day, which we started doing the May of the pandemic. And we are now in our the 12th month of the event, which is exciting. We've been doing it for a whole year now. So it's really an opportunity for folks to connect with homeless service providers, especially during a time when it's hard to connect face-to-face and get face-to-face information on the ground, especially for folks who don't have internet access, phone access, or like unreliable access to those communication methods. So it's been a really good opportunity for folks to come. It's outside, socially distanced, and we have a really great number of homeless service providers just set up and willing to talk and connect with folks. We have housing providers, employment, mental health, health navigation, like insurance navigation services, flu shots, Hep A and B, vaccines. We have COVID testing pretty regularly, and we have gift cards as incentives, which is great. So I think for the first, when you get tested, you get a $5 gift card, and then when you come and get your results, you get a $10 gift card. So a great way to encourage people to just get tested with the opportunity. And we have another door giving out all sorts of items like we give out lunch every day, but we have hygiene supplies, some clothes, some shoes, hand warmers. We have a whole bunch of stuff if people ask for it. So just an opportunity to connect with a lot of folks. And this month, as well as last month, we had the coalition come. So wonderful. Jason and Selena will be here next week sharing opportunities with folks about how to get registered to vote and also connect with their legislators and connect about legislative advocacy opportunities. So it's a really great time, especially like as the weather is getting nicer and just giving folks an opportunity to connect with each other and with providers. Again, like what I said, especially for folks who have had a lot of difficulty getting in touch with the services that they need during the pandemic. But that is it. We really encourage you guys to share this with your folks if you think they'd be interested in it. We have flyers on Facebook. If you want to get on our provider mailing list, I'll drop my email in the chat, or so you can email me, or you can also drop your email in the chat and send that to me, and I'll make sure that you get on that list so you can get all of our updates regarding future events and what's going on here at the cafe. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And again, that event is happening next Wednesday, April the 21st.
Important information. Wednesday, that's the 21st from 12:30 to 2:30, right outside our building. And so we use our parking lane for providers to sit in tents and tables, and we have plexiglass shields to protect everyone's safety. So we're at 2022 Bourne Ave, and again, it's 12:30 to 2:30.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel. We are looking forward to joining you and your team there next week. And then finally, we have one more update in our member update section. And this is in regards to a local organizing campaign that's getting off the ground. We are joined by Helena Benedict with the Tenants Union of Washington, who's going to speak briefly about the Stay Housed, Stay Healthy campaign and what they're hoping to accomplish in the coming weeks. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me and taking the time. My name is Helena, and I'm an organizer with the Tenants Union of Washington. I just wanted to share briefly about a campaign that we are working on with our partners at the Transit Riders Union and the King County Housing Justice Project. I put a link to the campaign website in the chat, and we are working to convene a coalition to pass permanent tenant and strengthen permanent tenant protections in Seattle and King County to ensure that we move beyond the temporary eviction moratoriums into stronger situations to keep people safe and housed and make sure that folks are not getting evicted for COVID debt or via landlords exploiting loopholes in the laws. Our current priorities include a slate of tenant protections that the King County Council is proposing for folks in unincorporated county areas, including capping moving fees, requiring longer notice of a significant rent increase, a just cause ordinance, and also wanting to work on closing Seattle's fixed term lease loophole, which means that folks who have a lease within the city of Seattle can still be evicted for no reason. And also supporting a council in a campaign to create a defense for eviction for folks who are facing financial hardship due to COVID, and to create longer and more clarified repayment period for a repayment plan if folks need to get caught up. We would love to have, if any of this sounds interesting or in line with the work that folks are doing, we would love to have organizations endorse the campaign in general. And we're also hoping for folks to be able to join a sign-on letter to the King County Council by April 21st. The coalition we have a lot of groups and it's growing, and the priorities could shift as, folks, as situations change and as folks begin what the most important work for you and your people are. We have meetings every 2 weeks, with the next one being on Monday, April 26th at 3:30. And would just love to spread the word and have as many folks join on as possible. I'm going to post some other links in the chat about how to get involved. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Helena, for bringing this to our attention. Again, if you or your organization are interested in lending your support to this effort, you can find more information and sign up for updates at the link shared in the chat. And that dovetails beautifully with the next portion of our agenda, which is our state and local advocacy updates. We are excited to share a number of really significant wins, as well as highlight a couple of things that are needing a little more support to get over the finish line. I think to intro this section, I'm going to hand things over to Selena Salongo, our Coalition Advocacy Coordinator. Selena, tell us what we're celebrating today.
Yeah, well, again, my name is Selena Salongo. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I am the advocacy coordinator with the coalition. I've started here in October, so my position, I've been completely virtual the entire time. It's my first legislative session with the coalition, and so really, really exciting year for state laws. I know that COVID-19, our homelessness crisis, as well as the very tragic murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, among many, many others, have brought, so many things to the line, like so many things to our public consciousness. And lawmakers are using the opportunities to respond to COVID, as well as to pass policies that, you know, change some systems that already were not serving many of our neighbors in Washington. And so really, really incredible wins so far. We are kind of ramping down. It's kind of less than 2 weeks left of the legislative session. So a lot of policy things have, you know, been moving, are still moving, are very close to being signed by the governor. And then there's also a budget process going on right now. I will have Jason or Sasha, if you could put the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance has a budget crosswalk if you would like to see what has been proposed by both chambers in terms of the budget, as well as Poverty Action Network. They also have kind of information about you know, what is being proposed in terms of like public benefits programs, among many other things. So I'll just, if you're interested, you can read that. The final budget should be released probably a couple days before end of session, which is April 25th. But budget's looking pretty good. I wanted to also just kind of take a moment to celebrate, since we are ramping down. We've had a lot of wins, and I really hate to do this because I like to see people's faces, but I'm actually going to screen share and kind of just talk through all of the wins and what still needs help. But yeah, we have a number of broad policy areas that were of interest to us going into this session. And so the first one is making sure that people are staying in their homes so that we can prevent a rise in homelessness. There's so many people behind on rent due to COVID-19, and it has really just exacerbated inequalities. And unless we have a significant off-ramp, we risk exacerbating a lot of racial inequities. And so a lot of you know, legislators, community advocates have been really pushing for packages that will help with creating an off-ramp to the eviction crisis that we're soon going to face once the eviction moratorium ends, but also strengthening tenant protections going forward so that we don't have more and more rises in homelessness. And so there are a couple bills. One is crossed out, which is House Bill 1441. Unfortunately, it did die this session. That said, there are a couple of really incredible bills that have made it pretty far in the process. And so House Bill 1236 is one, sponsored by Representative Nicole Macri, which it updates our landlord-tenant laws to make it so that landlords can only evict if they have a legitimate business reason to do so. And so this would go into effect statewide. It has passed both the House and the Senate, which is really incredible. It should make it to the governor's desk shortly. It's on a really good trajectory to passing into law. So kind of in line with that, many of these bills in this policy area are mutually reinforcing. And so Senate Bill 5160, which is sponsored by Senator Cooter. This one does a variety of things related to kind of helping people affected by COVID-19. But a really huge provision is that it ensures that tenants facing eviction have a right to counsel. This bill was passed by both chambers. However, the House did accept a pretty bad amendment on it that is really concerning in many ways, but mainly it makes it so that we may not be able to extend the eviction moratorium should we need to. And so I'm not sure, I can't see the chat, but Jason or Sasha, if you could put the link to take action on that one. If you, the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance has put together an action alert to contact your lawmakers and let them know to pass this bill, but also make the House rescind this bad amendment. So we definitely want it to pass, but we don't want that bad amendment. We don't want it to pass with that bad amendment. Sort of in line with that is 1277, sponsored by Representative Ormsby. It creates a rental assistance program, as well as things like foreclosure prevention and behavioral health services. And it does so by increasing our document recording fee by $100. It's just a fee that's assessed on the purchase or sale of property. So, I mean, if you're selling or purchasing property in Washington, you probably can afford this fee, and it goes to some really incredible programs. It's still making its way through the Senate right now. So that same link, you're able to take action on 5160 as well as 1277. So highly encourage you to contact your lawmakers about those ones. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these are on a pretty good trajectory to passing. So that's really incredible. And I'm sorry if I'm like speeding through things. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, or if a question pops up in the chat, Jason, just let me know. Another area that we are, of course, very focused on is increasing shelter and housing. We know that homelessness is continuing to rise. Not only that, but COVID-19 has really drastically reduced what is available in terms of shelter and housing. So we're always looking for ways to increase housing and shelter to respond to that crisis, but also ways to reduce barriers to siting things like affordable housing and supportive housing. And so 1070, which is sponsored by Representative Ryu, was recently signed into law, which is really, really exciting. It is a key part of King County's Health Through Housing initiative. In fall, King County implemented an increased sales tax. Basically, this bill would make it so that they can use the revenue from that sales tax to purchase properties and house people that are chronically homeless or at risk of chronic homelessness. And so, I mean, this is a really, really incredible win. I think the estimate is 1,600 people that will now be able to get housing. And so that is, I mean, thank you all for speaking up. I guess I should just thank you all for helping us pass this. And we'll talk a little bit more about that once I'm done with this. Allison will kind of take it over there. And then the other bill kind of related to reducing barriers to creating things like shelter and housing is 1220. So this one, it does a variety of really, really incredible things, but it was brought to our attention because it makes it clear that cities can't pass zoning laws that ban things like shelter or supportive housing if they already allow other types of short-term accommodation like hotels, motels, or Airbnbs. Many local jurisdictions have used zoning laws to create really, really heavy barriers to citing things like shelter and supportive housing. And so this one has been passed by both chambers. It's on a pretty good trajectory to passing into law. And then, I mean, the top of our meeting, Jason highlighted some of our coalition values, and one of those values is justice. And we define that as preserving the civil rights and dignity of people experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity. And so I don't know if somebody from Civil Survival or on the Voting Rights Restoration Coalition is on the call, but if you are, please unmute yourself and I can kind of pass it over to you to announce one of the really, really incredible wins of this session, which is the passage of House Bill 1078. I don't know. I'm not seeing Corey on the call, who was a big part of this effort, but I really wish that he was to announce this. But House Bill 1078, which is related to restoring voting rights to people on community custody. So restoring people's voting rights after they've exited incarceration, but are living in their communities. They're now able to vote. It was signed into law last week. It will go into effect 2022, I should say. But it's a really, really incredible bill. We were heavy supporters of it just because of the meaning in terms of civil rights and racial equity, but also because there's a huge overlap in criminalization and homelessness and systemic racism. And so it's really incredible that this has passed, and it's I believe that it's its third time through the legislative session. So thank you all for speaking up for this one. It is now law. So, and then I did want to highlight 1301. And this is a bill that was kind of, the prime movers on this are the Transportation Choices Coalition, but this is related to changing our laws to make it clear that transit agencies can respond to fair enforcement, but outside of the court system. In King County Sound Transit, a lot of agencies kind of enforce fair pretty inequitably, and so this law would kind of make it clear that fair enforcement doesn't need to be part of the court system, and people don't need to get ticketed or fined or even, criminal records due to their inability to pay things like fare. So this one has been passed by both chambers, which is really great. I think it's on the governor's desk awaiting a signature. Of course, this is just a law that makes it clear to transit agencies that they should do this. It's really up to the transit agencies themselves to implement those changes, but hopefully they do. And then I just also wanted to highlight, because this is a lot of this has been really in the public consciousness, and a lot of Black-led organizations have been really, really pushing for a lot of these bills. And these are not all of the bills, but these are ones that I've been tracking. And so all of these bills are related to public safety and police accountability. I mean, way too many Black and Brown people have experienced violence at the hands of police, and many of them have been murdered. Our current systems don't hold police officers accountable for this. And so there's a lot of movements from Black-led organizations to change the ways that policing works in our state. And so highly recommend following the Coalition for Police Accountability, the Washington Black Lives Matter Alliance, and the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Just want to throw credit where credit is due. They've been the prime movers of a lot of this advocacy work. But essentially, these bills do a number of different things, but it makes it clear that, police shouldn't use tactics that lead to violence and death. Deadly force should be the last option. And so that's 1054 and 1310. And then also, if police have been found to use misconduct, they should be investigated independently and not by other police. And if they have committed misconduct, they should be decertified. So those are 1267 and 5051. I know that 1054 and 1310 were heavily amended by the Senate, and the House is not concurring with those amendments. And so I would recommend following those organizations. I'm sure that there might be some continued advocacy that is needed to make sure that these bad amendments don't pass that water down the intent of the bill. Yeah, I will stop sharing. I know that that was a lot. I was trying to get all of that, and it's really hard to do a lot of that work justice in a short time period, but I'm happy to answer any questions at all. And then I will also kick it over to Allison, who kind of wants to talk about local things that are going on, because of course there's a lot of overlap between our state legislative work as well as our local legislative work.
Thank you so much, Selena, for that tremendous walk through some extraordinary successes and work that is still in process. And just to highlight the note that you ended on, of course, the work around police accountability measures, the work around making sure our transit agencies don't criminalize people for not being able to pay their fares, this is ongoing work. You know, passage of laws is only one part of the process. And while we focus intensely on it during legislative session, because that's when laws get passed or not passed, you know, we are all deeply committed to the realization of what we need those laws to make possible. I'm going to be really brief because we are a little bit behind. What I want to also note for you is that our May 20th meeting, the next membership meeting, is our annual membership meeting. And because it comes at the end of our legislative session, it is going to include, we hope, some of the legislative champions and some of the advocacy champions who have helped to make these wins and other progress possible. And I hope that you will all make sure to mark your calendars for that May 20th meeting. There's one other late breaking action that I'm going to put in the chat right now. And I have to say, I'm sorry that I don't have much information beyond what is there. There is wonderful work that the Equity in Education Coalition has been doing since before the session started to address the digital divide and the gaps, the huge gulfs that, of course, have become more extremely important during COVID and remote education. And apparently yesterday, I shouldn't say when, but apparently some of the really important community, local control, and equity elements were stripped out of that bill. And so the Equity in Education Coalition has an action alert, and I dropped that link into the chat for you. We supported their work before session to develop this very strong set of proposals that the governor actually put into his draft budget. And I think it's worth your time to click on the link. You will learn more about it, and then you can decide whether or not you want to take action. We have a lot going on locally here in Seattle, in King County, and probably many more things than we can really cover in a few minutes today. So we may have, we occasionally have special conversations that we schedule for things that really need more time and that are not necessarily fitting into our agenda planning. I want to touch briefly on a couple of those. One has to do with what some folks have referenced in the chat, the proposed charter amendment at the City of Seattle, which is an effort by the Downtown Seattle Business Association and the Chamber of Commerce and others to propose to amend the city charter. There is a lot still in process about that. There is a proposal, and I will say where we have been attempting to play a role is to reduce the potential for harm in what is being proposed. And we are still in the course of working on that. So we will be updating you all just as soon as humanly possible. Also of grave concern is the draft ordinance that's been proposed in the city of Auburn that would change camping or trespassing on city-owned property from its current civil infraction status to a criminal infraction. We, of course, are opposed to this and very concerned about it. We have expressed those concerns to the mayor and the city council of Auburn. We've been working with coalition member organizations. There are over a dozen of our member organizations that are currently providing services to Auburn residents, both those with homes and those without. And we really want to encourage anyone who lives or provides services in Auburn to weigh in on this. And we've also flagged this issue for the implementation board of the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. We're not yet sure about where the process is. There was a study session this past Monday. There may be a vote as early as this coming Monday. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Selena or me. And if you're an Auburn resident, we especially would be grateful for a chance to talk with you. I'll flip back briefly to the state and talk about something that is going to open up enormous possibilities, as Selena shared, here locally. The Health Through Housing initiative is now alive. Governor Inslee signed House Bill 1070 into law at around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And we're really excited about the opportunity to rapidly create 1,600 homes for individuals and families experiencing chronic homelessness or at risk of chronic homelessness all throughout King County. Yesterday, King County released the request for qualifications, RFQ, for entities that would like to be involved in property management, facility operations, program management, on-site services, targeted outreach and navigation services, and culturally specific and community-based services. There's a lot of information here. I will work with Jason to make sure that it goes into the follow-up, and we will of course post it. But what I especially want to note for you is that there is a pre-application conference scheduled. It's not required, but you may wish to attend. And it's for April 20th from 2 to 3 p.m. So I'll put a little bit of information into the chat for that. And we continue to work with our members and all of you to make sure that this is a roaring success. And in short order, make it clear that housing is what people need. I think that's the end of my portion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. And again, Allison shared her email address in the chat. If you have any questions about what she just went over that you'd like more information on or follow up with, please reach out. The last few minutes we have, we would like to just do a handful of updates. And before we get to the end of our meeting, I want to say a little bit about our May 20th annual meeting and sort of how it's going to be a little bit different. Our annual meeting is longer than our typical meetings, so we are asking that for Thursday, May 20th, that folks hold 9 to 12 on their calendars. We are hoping to both conduct our annual Coalition Board of Directors elections and do a thank you to our members that might take the form of a musical performance or something similar. We'll provide additional details as we get closer. I just wanted to flag that for everyone. And while we have at least one of our Coalition Board members on the call, we'd like to talk a little bit about our efforts around board recruitment. And I think Sasha and Nick were going to speak very briefly to this, if I'm not mistaken.
Nick, we are unable to hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Better. Great. Well, thank you for bearing with that. I will make this very brief. I'm a member. My name's Nick White. I am a member of the Coalition Board of Directors, and we are currently recruiting for board memberships. They are 3-year terms. So for example, myself, I'm in my 2nd year. Every 3 years we have staggered terms, or every 3 years we, each of us who is up would be up for evaluation to continue. We recruit every year. As Jason had said a moment ago, we have folks who will be up for election, and we're also opening up a solicitation for prospective board members. We have a very diverse group of individuals who are broadly representative of Seattle and different variety of backgrounds and professions and walks of life. And we'd like to keep the board that way and make it more so to the extent that we can. So to that end, we are holding information sessions. We had one last night, and we will have another at from 11 to noon on Saturday, so in 2 days. And anybody who's interested in even just learning about the board and what it is we do, which might be a little bit of a mystery. I have to say it certainly was for me when I got acquainted, but very briefly, the roles of the board is to draft and promote the mission, vision, and values that we go over at the beginning of every one of these membership meetings. We provide oversight of the finances and guidance. We are instrumental in fundraising, and we also hire and evaluate the person who occupies the executive director, which happens to be Allison at this point. So there's a variety of things that we are responsible for, very much working in the background, but also integral to assisting with the operations of the coalition. And we'd really like to know if you have anybody that you would like to promote, you would like to put forward for the board, or just have them come and attend and find out what it is that we're all about. We'll provide a link for an information session, like I said, at 11 o'clock on Saturday, and there's an online application. And then over the course of the rest of this month, before next May's membership meeting, we will evaluate those candidates and put forward a slate. Allison, go ahead and add anything, or Sasha, that I might have missed.
Thank you so much, Nick. If you are interested in learning more about our board recruitment and development process, we encourage you to sign up at the link in the chat. And then Sasha, forgive me if I'm mistaken, but do you have a vaccine day announcement that you're hoping to share as part of this meeting?
Yes, thank you, Jason. As the Seattle Times in the morning brief today shared, happy Vax Day, everyone. For April 15th, everyone who is 16 and over is currently eligible to receive the vaccine. And with that, we also have exciting news to share that the coalition received some appreciation from Patty Hayes and Dr. Jeff Duchin for our efforts in the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. And so we extend that appreciation to our members, to everyone on this call, for your partnership in letting us know how distributing the vaccines have been going at your sites, for letting us know the concerns for your sites individually and the people you serve. We could not have advocated and worked in partnership with public health without having the information on the ground from all of you. So thank you for your partnership, and happy Vax Day.
Happy Vax Day, everyone. And thank you all so much for informing and guiding our advocacy efforts on this topic. I want to acknowledge that we are past 10:30, and I want to respect everyone's time on the call here. We do have one more quick update that we want to squeeze in for those of you who can stay for a couple minutes longer, and that is the King County Nonprofit Employment Survey. This is a survey that is a part of the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy that is open to all nonprofit employees, including and especially direct service providers here in King County. There are two parts to this survey. One, which is a sort of detailed overview of wages and benefits at nonprofit organizations. That survey is really intended for executive directors, operations folks, HR managers, people who have sort of intimate knowledge of wages and benefits at the organization. That is open now and is going to be open until, I believe, early May. The other part of this is for employees of nonprofit organizations. That survey is expected to take about 15 to 20 minutes to complete, and doesn't necessarily go over the details of wages and benefits, but speaks more to working conditions and sort of workplace culture. You can expect to see questions about satisfaction with compensation, questions about the support and the direction that you receive from your supervisors, information provided by leadership, how inclusive or non-inclusive your workplace culture is, and more. Why are we bringing this to your attention? These surveys are an opportunity for our community to sort of collectively speak to what is working well and what maybe needs to be addressed. Ever since the uprisings, racial uprisings of last summer, folks in our community have been talking about moving away from sort of white savior centered models of care and moving towards doing things differently. 2 years ago, when the coalition successfully helped to advocate for a cost of living adjustment in all of the Seattle Human Services contracts with the city of Seattle, we utilized data from a very similar survey to be able to make our case that this was necessary. Information is power, and this is a way for us to all speak in a collective voice. I see that our operations director, Elaine, is on the call, who recently filled out the wages and benefits survey for our organization. Thank you, Elaine. Do you have any insights on this that you want to share with other folks on the call?
Thank you, Jason. I would just say beautifully put. It is incredibly important for folks to take the time to complete the survey that is currently open right now on wages and benefits. And as Jason mentioned, that is really for folks who do have intimate knowledge of all of the different roles, and do be aware that there is going to be an important role for executive directors to provide some information about executive pay and so forth, which might not always be readily available otherwise. So it's important to engage your senior leadership on that as well. And then the second survey, as Jason mentioned, is really related to employee engagement. That opens on April 22nd. If you're wondering, wait a second, wasn't it supposed to open earlier? You are correct. It was, the original date was April 6th, then it got moved to April 15th, and now it's April 22nd. And so let us hope that the survey will become available April 22nd. For that survey. The wage and benefits survey does close on May 2nd. So please do prioritize that, because that, depending on the size of your organization, may take some time. So for really small organizations, it might just represent an hour or two. For other organizations, depending on how complex your organization is, it may take longer. So please do provide that information, because as Jason so eloquently put, information is power, and it's important to have this to help advance change in important ways, to uplift everyone. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Elaine. And again, the wages and benefits survey is open now through 501 Commons through May 2nd. The employee engagement survey will be opening next Thursday, the 22nd. If you would like to be notified when the employee engagement survey is available to take, you can sign up for notifications at the link that I dropped in the chat there. Well, thank you all so much for bearing with us a little bit past our 10:30 stop time. Allison, do you have any final remarks before we close things out that we didn't get to? Wonderful. Well, again, we so appreciate you all taking the time to spend your Thursday mornings with us, to share information, advocate for changes, and build solidarity and power as a movement. Our next meeting, which is our annual membership meeting, will be on Thursday, May 20th. We're asking folks to hold 9 to noon on your calendars. As our board member Nick mentioned, there will be an election for our new slate of board members. We will be reaching out to all of you as part of our 2021 membership drive. You do need to be a current dues-paying member of the coalition in order to cast a vote on the behalf of your organization in our board election, and we strongly encourage all of you to participate. On the behalf of myself, Sasha, Selena, Aileen, Allison, and everyone else here at the Coalition on Homelessness, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.